a good transition to the name of the project, which the name originally was called. So it was taken from the ancient Greek. That was where I came up with the idea originally. The nous, as how it would be pronounced in ancient Greek. I simultaneously, the way that's spelled in English is NOUS. So obviously it is parallel with nous in French, which means obviously we, so the collective concept, the collective consciousness. So I thought, well, what a great name for an improvisational ensemble. The problem I had with it was new forever, I was calling it, but then when the album started coming out, I was trying to tell people, I kept on saying the new, and no one understood what I was talking about. So it was like, and it had like this very krautrock vibe, like German rock kind of thing. So I was like, so that sounds kind of cool, even though, and I thought it was kind of closer to the Greek, but as Arji corrected me, the correct Greek would be
nous.
And when we were speaking, we determined that wouldn't necessarily be still the best way of using it. So we're staying with nous for now, even though it means the name is about nous. And in a way, I think that definitely our record, but I think also the project in a whole, the other 3 albums with the group of 12 other musicians. But on our record in particular, really, and I think, Laaraji and Arji's music is doing this all the time, but we really tap into those moments of like that collective consciousness, that higher mind, that vertical mind, nowness that you're referring to. And I did NOUS, the second incarnation of NOUS was with Carl Berger, who's coming tonight. He's a great jazz musician who's very much aligns with the way that you guys see the world, and that was called NOUS One Mind, and that was his thing. His thing is his musical way. He teaches music as a professor. He calls it the One Mind. His method's the One Mind with music. As his book he just wrote, it's called the One Mind.
Sounds good. Sounds non-verbal.
Yeah. So but it's all I'm using this primarily as a moment to talk about the titling of NOUS, but the other thing is then I chose the circumpunct as the symbol, which is a good representation of what we're trying to talk about. Is my point, and it's amazing because I don't even know how that all came together, but
you were inspired.
Amazing. Yeah, or I just realized. But as we've spoken about in previous interviews, but just to get it on tape here, the concept of the circumpunct is you have the circle, but then you have the dot in the center. And the circle obviously is that idea of the circle has no end and no beginning, and it can encompass everything. Simultaneously, the circumpunct can represent like the jiva, or the individual soul. And like even in astrophysics or in science, as I understand it, there is no center of the universe. There's only wherever you're standing, you're in the center of it. So the circumpunct, being a very, very ancient symbol, actually one of the most ancient symbols across many, many cultures, I thought was a perfect kind of expression of that nous idea.
What's interesting, it just came to mind, is when you beautifully state that, how about 6 years ago, there was a collective of ambient musicians and music tracks, of which Laaraji's naturally on that, as are Yasos and Steve Halpern, and you can name many. What is the title? I Am Center.
Yeah.
And it's all musicians who would embody exactly that visual over and over, and it just struck me. I am center.
Yeah.
And that is the epitome of what people call ambient or new age, and I don't like any of those titles because they miss something.
The word miss, I missed out something. In the morning ritual, I've been taking cold showers, and I'm finding something quite unique about that.
Yeah, it's powerful.
Yeah.
I was doing the Wim Hof method for a while. Have you ever heard about
yes,
him?
Yes, I have.
Yeah, and it's quite powerful. I mean,
It is.
It's really crazy what it can.
It does something to the vagus nervous system good. you know?
Exactly. Yeah. It's yeah. But do you do a sitting meditation? Like, do you sit every day? Or-
Yes, every day informally, meaning that whether it's in the park or at home on a nice high zafu, I prefer to sit in lotus position when doing concerts when it's possible. When somebody says, "Where's your home?" I say lotus position. When I'm in lotus position, I contact my center. I feel cozy in the universe. But I sit every day. I'm making a connection. Whether it's a park bench or at home. And though it would be ideal to do it half an hour at a time, and I consider a hero's or heroine's length of time would be 10% of every day. Give 10% of your day to the universe. So that would be about 2 hours and 40 minutes.
Why 10%?
It's the idea of tithing.
Ah, okay,
You're
interesting.
tithing your
Yeah, yeah.
energy.
Totally.
And it can bring back.
But that's a very tithing. 10% is actually a very Christian, Judeo-Christian concept, isn't it? I don't know if that 10% comes
Yes,
from
I
other
don't know
traditions.
if
I don't think
Judaism
10%
has that in it.
Well, yes.
Judy?
Tithing is definitely, but it's not a matter of what is the percentage. It's just the fact that you are making a committed amount,
Yeah.
that you're tithing it and happily giving it. So using your energy that way, yeah.
Do you sit like ritualistically daily, or is it more also just like open?
For me, I do best when I have a set time, like when I get up in the morning and I ritualistically, I light candles, incense.
You do it
have an
around the same
altar.
time every morning?
I try to.
I'm the same way, yeah.
For
But
me,
I also
that-
have a 2-year-old, so I have to.
Well, and yeah, I go through spurts too, where it's not feasible, but I try to then find, as Laaraji said, if I'm walking on the bike path and there's a bench,
Yeah.
and I haven't had my morning sit, I'll
Yeah.
sit down and just make it a point to connect.
I mean, the way to do it is to be living it all the time and to be able to spontaneously be sitting. But I'm not that's like, I'm not that kind of master. So I if I don't feel right if I don't kind of like get it structured in my day. And it's kind of like what you said, and it is a tithing. It's an offering of that time to that space, whatever you call it, the nous, the divine, the inner Buddha, the inner, the higher mind, whatever it is, or just tranquility, or just cultivating a strong mind. I kind of need that structure it seems to me. I've tested it out over 15 years, and it seems to be the most conducive for
Yes.
stability. But I yearn to be just the person that spontaneously wakes up and just goes through life, like sitting, here, like kind of always kind of there.
They're always on the cushion.
A million
Seem like the sadhus
lifetimes
do
from
that.
now. What's that?
The sadhus in India, I think
Yeah.
they do that.
Yeah, totally.
They don't have a 2-year-old running around.
Yeah, yeah, totally. Laaraji, sounds like you're a really night owl. I'm very much a night owl.
I do my best work at night, maybe because it aligns with the meditation sweet hours.
It's interesting though that you meditate in the middle of the night, which was actually like I'm sure you know the life of Buddha. They actually say like he stayed up, only slept like 2-3 hours a night. You know the stories of Buddha? He
No.
taught the devas in the middle of the night. He would teach all the the humans during the day, and then he would sit at night, and then the devas would all come to him, and he'd teach them in the middle of the night. He'd sleep for a couple hours, and then get up and do it again.
That sounds real. There's something to say that the ether is clearest in your location around 3 in the morning because
Yes, and they
people
call
are
that-
sleeping.
Yeah.
The monk's hour too.
Month's hours. I find it very peaceful. Matter of fact, if I'm up at 12 and I'm getting into creativity, a burst of very auspicious energy starts happening around 3 o'clock, and I look at the clock. Yep. and it's happening.
What time do you tend to get up?
You get up earlier now.
Sometimes I go sleep about 6 or 7, and I'll get up depending on what I've. Sometimes I can sleep for 2 hours, 3 hours if I've got something else to do that day, and sometimes I'll go to 12 or 1 o'clock. But it's not structured, tightly structured, and it works for me.
It really, I mean, you take it day by day. It just shifts day by day. What time you go to sleep,
What
time you get
projects
up.
are up, and
I would never be able to do that. I'd be sick. Like my body, can't. My immune system, I don't think could handle that. It's interesting. Like my immune
I need
system.
more structure
Yeah.
too.
The
maybe I
sleep
had structure for a
schedule.
while. I
Yeah.
mean, and with ashrams and New Age conferences, there's
Yeah.
those structures of getting up in the morning to play for 6:30 or 8:30 meditation class, and then fire ceremony in the evening or in the midday. So I've been subjected to structure, and
And you do well with it. Like when we're at the ashram,
Yeah.
we're out usually well before midnight, because we're up early to play for the morning meditation.
Yeah.
So
I wouldn't do the midnight oil. I wouldn't burn it during conference time and ashram time. So I shift for that.
But when you're on your own, or when you're in the process of writing or recording, you tend to do your best work in the middle of the night.
Yes.
Oh, even last night, I picked Laaraji up at Amtrak. I was up since 5 yesterday morning, so by 9:30, 10, I said, I can't keep my eyes open. I went up, that was it. It was after 3 before Laaraji even started to, feel a sense of needing rest.
Yeah. What do you think? Because it sounds like you probably don't watch like a lot of movies. Obviously, probably not television. I'm guessing.
Well, you're watching.
I watched a lot during the pandemic.
Yeah.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, the
Yeah.
Marvelous Maisel,
Okay.
and the
Netflix.
newest one, the Underground Railroad.
Oh, so you do watch television? Okay, because
Well, I watched Prime and
Netflix.
YouTube's. And
Okay.
YouTube.
Okay, so you're in there. I was curious what your thoughts were about like the presence of screens and
Education,
and
new education.
it's a new form of education.
Yeah, access to a wider highway of information flow.
Yeah.
Of course,
It has
though
a
some of it
downside.
yes, you question some of it, but it's a wider. I got a good education. Also, it allowed me to deconstruct my fantasies and fetishes around my favorite actresses. You get to now and this when you were young, you thought, "Whoa, I like to be with her," and then then you get to see the story behind these people, and you get to see through Hollywood and get to deconstruct your fantasies. And so I grow that way by letting go of old fantasies. I had the biggest crush on Marilyn Monroe and Jane Russell, and then I got to see it from this side, and Rita Hayworth, and I got to see that Rita
From
Hayworth
what side?
from the side of,
What was the
steps
life really like?
Like a documentary about her? Or? Okay.
outside of the Hollywood image.
Right,
Okay.
right.
Yes.
But you're talking about like seeing some documentary about her or something?
Seeing documents.
Okay.
And getting information. There's information that I don't think your general audience TV networks would allow you to see. Then there's good National Geographic. There's David Attenborough.
There's amazing
Yes.
nature documentaries out there now, including an amazing climate change one that you guys should watch. It just
Yeah.
came out.
But I said a
weeks ago.
fantastic one was the Underground Railroad that's going on now in Prime. It may help me to connect with so much
It's a very personal thing.
very personal thing.
Yeah.
Because I lived in the South for a little while. And
Were you born in the South? Oh, you weren't born in the South.
He caught it. You caught yourself.
Was this the body in
the body's birth certificate was initiated in Philadelphia.
Oh, in Philadelphia. So actually, that's
Pennsylvania.
that's the north.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, but after the fire, and how old were you?
Virginia.
7?
You had
Yeah, that's
some
very-
connection.
At the age of 7.
That had a big imprint.
Yeah, lived with my grandfolks in southern rural backwoods of Virginia.
Sharecropper
Because you wrote a song about Virginia. That's where I knew
Yeah.
about it on the
on Vision Songs.
okay, on Vision Songs.
No vision songs.
Celestial
Bring
something.
forth.
Bring
Bring on
forth.
the sun.
Yeah,
Bring on the sun. Okay.
Gee.
I th- Yeah, that's right. Not Vision Songs.
Yeah, it's I can only yeah. I'm again my first music teacher. He was an African American man that lived his whole life in Columbia, South Carolina, born and died, and I studied with him 5 to 6 days, sometimes 7 days a week for 3 years. Like
did what?
he was like my father.
Guitar.
Ah.
He was like my father. He taught me. He was the first person that showed me meditation. I didn't know anything about it. I was a jock, baseball player, playing at University of South Carolina, played at University of Virginia, transferred to University of South Carolina, drafted by the Seattle Mariners, hardcore, big, weighed 230 pounds, giant muscles, shaved head. Yeah, me.
Yeah, you were on your way
I was
to
a,
being
it was a serious baseball player.
Wow, I
And
can
I
see
got
that.
injured. I shattered a bone in my foot that they removed and tore my shoulder, and that was it. Super depressed.
The same day?
That's how I found music. Out of that depression, I started playing guitar, and I sought out this guy who was a legendary Robert Newton, say his name. He was a legendary teacher in Columbia, South Carolina. Everyone knew him. He was like a Buddha in his own way. He was the most loving, like gregarious. Everyone, you would sit on. We would have a lesson at like 6 or 7 p.m., 6 p.m. at night at his little tiny room on top of this music store in downtown Columbia, South Carolina. We would come out after every night that we would have a lesson almost, sit out on when the music store closed and just talk out on the street corner for like 2 or 3 hours. He'd just talk about everything, about life and relationships. I mean,
What a generous spirit.
he was an amazing person. But the amazing thing was you would sit there with him and literally like within every 5-minute radius, someone was coming by, Robert, to like give him a hug. He was giving hugs like every 5 minutes because he was just so lovable. It was amazing to experience his presence. And he was fierce too. That was the other thing.
Have you dedicated any work to him?
I went to his funeral and like had a string quartet played like some of my pieces for him, but I have not written a piece for him. But I wrote to him when he was alive, sending him all. He was it was a really, I mean, I didn't know anything when I came to him to like kind of go down the path I went down. But he also like prophesized. Is that the right word? Prophesied or prophesized? Like so much of what I would do from the beginning. It was really amazing. Like he was always, because I really just wanted to be a guitar player and a singer, and he was like, you're going to be this person that's going to do really big things that brings a lot of people together, or like a lot, like these big kind of conceptual projects. That was like his thing. And I wasn't into any of that at the time. I just wanted to be like a rock musician, like a rock star, and playing guitar. But he like saw that.
He was he was a guru to you.
He just knew like how he could see that I had like the composer kind of mind with music as opposed to like being a virtuoso guitarist.
May I ask what took his life so young?
Yeah, he was a virtuoso guitarist. He actually played with like Dizzy Gillespie and in a bunch of fusion jazz guy. He was really like a fusion, but he could play every style and he taught every style. He really taught improvisation. I mean, I learned NOUS was devoted to him. Sorry, because it was. I revisited
that makes
NOUS
sense.
after writing Bardo. Spending 3 years writing a classical piece, and then being so burnt out of that isolation, saying I really need to play with people. But that was all because of that experience of being trained by Robert as an improviser and all the experiences I had after that. Like he would take me to like the African American clubs in South Carolina where I was like the only white person in there, and he'd force me to go up on stage and play with the blues with these guys that were all like old black guys playing like music in the South, and I was like 21 years old. I mean, it was like it was a christening, in its own way. It was an amazing thing to be able to experience, but he would force me to do it because I was so like had so much stage fright and was shy, you know. So
Yeah.
it was. He was I don't know how I.
How did
The
you
initial
find
discussion.
out he passed?
Oh, I'm sorry. He had a strokes
Stroke.
early on in his life, in his 40s.
Oh.
And when I met him, he had already had strokes, and he lost a lot of his playing, and it was really hard for him because he was like a shredder player, and he had rehabilitated a lot and was able to play. When I played with him, he could still play like amazing fast to me. I thought he was like amazing, but he would say, and other people said, that he had lost like a lot. He apparently was like really like a kind of metal shredder. And then in his late 50s, they came back, and it was at the point, you know, he lived to, he was paralyzed for some years, you know, I think pretty like bedridden before he passed. But yeah, I don't know. Yeah, he was. Now I know why I brought it up, because many times we would have a night lesson and be talking out on the street, and 2 times a cop drove up. This is Columbia, South Carolina. Drove up, rolls up, and I was 20 years old. I didn't really understand this. And cop rolls down the window. It goes to me. He's like, "Are you all right?"
See, yeah.
And I was like, I didn't
Profiling.
get it at first. And I remember the first time it happened though. I said to Robert, I said, "Why? What was that about?" And all Robert did was he just went like that and pulled on his cheek, and he was just saying, it was amazing to me to see like how prevalent that was. But he also, it was also the time in Columbia, South Carolina, where there was an African American man every month climbing a ladder in front of the state capitol building, up a ladder, taking a torch and torching the Confederate flag. And then the police would come and arrest him, throw him in prison. He'd be in prison for like a month. He'd come out, a week later, he'd go and torch the flag.
Wow.
Over and over, until finally he was like kind of like this celebrity for doing this.
Wow.
It was amazing. And you know,
Well,
they
the
finally
flag
took
company
it
giving
down.
him a kickback.
Yeah, exactly.